Wife cheated, and the abandoned kids, and what's my best option? Even if it's only to rant, it's healthy for me. So here goes. My wife was having a really numerous affairs, which I discovered by chance. We married in 2008 and welcomed our kid a year later. She pushed hard for a second child right away due to age difficulties, and we had our second son in about a year and a half. I was working 72-hour weeks while still doing most of the housework, since working in EMS with 24-hour shifts meant I could work 72 hours and have 4 days off. She began treating me like garbage shortly after we had our second kid, but I simply chalked it up to postpartum depression and continued to be cheerful, thinking myself blessed to have such a lovely family and proud to work my butt off 24/7 to make her as happy as possible. Except for about 2 years after having her second child, she was mostly employed, but she never shared her income or spent it on household expenses, and I never said anything. Because we assumed that because I made 3 times what she did, I'd pay for everything and she'd keep her money in her account or pillow as our savings. She began having all sorts of cosmetic surgery and other aesthetic operations after having her second kid, which she paid for out of our money. I always told her that she was beautiful the way she was, but she claimed that it would make her happy, and it's all about how she feels, so I never objected much. Not that I would or could decide for her anyways. I'm sure 2 breast operations, liposuctions, and other procedures to remove C-section scars, a nose job, lip fillers, Botox, approximately 12 full-body laser hair removal sessions, and all the makeup and brand-name apparel and accessories weren't inexpensive, but I know she had a large amount left. One day, I was browsing through my phone bill to locate a number for a person who wanted to purchase a tool for me off of Craigslist a while ago and unintentionally had her number open instead of mine, my own family phone plan, and noticed hundreds of calls in the middle of the night and on days I was at work. Putting her demeanor and the phone calls together, I decided to look up some of the numbers and discovered all these individuals I didn't know. I went to her and informed her, as gently as I could for the sake of the kids, that I had discovered she was seeing other people, and that was when my life began to spiral out of control. She quickly transformed it into me being a controlling jerk who had spied on her and checked her phone, and she became so enraged that I had to get the kids in lead because I didn't want them to go through all of that shouting and screaming. When we returned at night, she had just collected her luggage and departed. This was in 2015, and for the previous 6 years, she has been gone for months at a time, and if she breaks up with someone, which occurs much too often, she simply moves back without notice, stating it's her home. And I don't have the authority to say otherwise. Stays for a time or only comes home at night, and then disappears without a trace. I don't even start disagreements with her since she has shown to be much superior to me at yelling and going from 0 to 100 and terrorizing the kids. Managing babysitting while I leave for work has been a nightmare, despite the fact that my family and friends have been quite helpful when I'm working. The divorce hasn't been finalized. I was trying to avoid hiring a lawyer to save money, since I'd wind up paying for hers as well. Dumb of me, I know, because every time we get near, she changes her mind or leaves. She has said multiple times that if I want peace of mind, I should just give her the home, take my sons and go. My bank statements reflect that I have paid every single payment, every single bill for the home, and any additional costs from day one. We live in a no-fault state, though I never intended not to give her anything because, after all, she is my children's mother, but she is not sharing any information about her savings, and I believe that in the best-case scenario for me, she gets half of everything we have, despite the fact that she has been separated and mostly gone for 6 years now, during which time I've continued to work and pay for everything, and house value has doubled. Losing a home means we'll have to relocate, which adds to the boys' stress since they've been pleading me not to change schools/friends, but I won't be able to afford to live where I'm if the house is gone. She said she doesn't want custody, but she's also said that if I ask for anything that goes against her wishes, she'll ask for custody just to keep the house and get me to pay all kinds of things. Worse, I know I'll have to take care of my kids 100% even if she gets custody, because she and I both know how much I care for my boys and couldn't possibly let them have the kind of life I know they'd have with a mother who doesn't. When I was at work and she was with them, the most she could do was feed them a lunch, place them in front of the Xbox, and go to her room to spend the day on Instagram and other social media. I know I've written a lot, so I don't think many, if any, people will have time to read this, and believe me, I'm not even getting started on the kind of abuse the kids and I have been subjected to, or how she has planned to make me look like the guilty one because I've kept my mouth shut and not shared with anyone, mostly out of embarrassment. However, if someone who is knowledgeable about this subject reads part of it, what do you think is my best course of action? Do I have a chance of convincing the court to believe me, considering that everyone around here seems to accept the woman's side instantly or significantly more easily? If it were me, I'd simply grab my suitcase and leave her with everything. But I have a lot of expenses and college debts to deal with, so I believe it's my responsibility to advocate for my children's future. Story 2. I cheated on my wife, and the guilt and shame I feel is so unbearable I'm only carrying on is because I want my daughter to grow up with a dad. I have a 4-month-old son and cheated on my wife around 7 weeks ago. I'm bi-curious, and although I'm not emotionally or physically attracted to males, thus I wouldn't want to be in a relationship with one, I sometimes feel compelled to engage in activities with men. My wife is aware, and she has previously dabbled with women. I have very little experience, and I rationalized it in my brain by stating that I simply need to do it and get it out of my system. So when I was home alone one night, I hopped on Grindr, and within about 10 minutes, I'd scheduled an H-up and met 2 men in one night. It was so easy to locate people and simply go do it without thinking since I was high on adrenaline. I didn't do anything particularly hazardous, so there was no risk of contracting anything. My wife and I didn't have much anyhow, and I made sure I was tested to be cautious. I instantly regretted it and felt terrible. I vowed to myself that it was a one-time occurrence and that I would never do it again. I felt horrible for the first 2 weeks, but it became worse and worse. It's practically all I think about now, 7 weeks later, from the moment I wake up until I go to bed. A wave of nausea washes over me every time I looked at them or heard my kid laugh or having pleasure. I've never felt more ashamed in my life, and I'm afraid to seek for assistance, since I deserve every negative sensation I have. I reasoned that alerting her would be selfish on my part, since it was a one-time incident that I didn't really like, and the guilt was already terribly intense, and I didn't want to burden her more. Neither of the lads' identities nor any of their contact information is known to me, and it is not an affair to which I am drawn back again and again. Telling her would damage her and serve no reason other than to relieve me of my guilt over what I had done. I don't want my kid to suffer problems because she holds her father responsible for what he did, or to grow up in a dysfunctional family as I did as a child. I was already bipolar, depressed, anxious, and suicidal, and I was experiencing impulses. If I told my wife and she left me, and I knew she'd find another man to raise my child, I'd probably commit myself rather than face the consequences. I've decided that I'm going to commit suicide, but I'm going to wait until she's a little older and more established before doing so. The damage I've done is irreversible. I've become a completely worthless piece of junk. It is my belief in the hereafter that causes me to dread death, since if I make it to heaven, if such a place exists, I will have to stand before them and explain what I've done. I'm praying there's nothing more to life than death. All I want is to die in the midst of my embarrassment. I don't deserve my family or anything else in life for that matter. I'm at a loss for what to do since I'm growing unwell as a result of not getting enough sleep, and I've started drinking more and engaging in mild self-harm, but the situation is becoming progressively worse. I just wanted everyone to be aware of what a vile person I am. The majority of people think I'm a fantastic man, and I used to think I was a particularly nice gentleman. However, I made a horrible, awful mistake, and I implore you to avoid making the same mistakes that I did.